and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Barjo.
And I'm Hex.
Hex, I don't know where to begin this week. So many games to talk about.
Well, how about we start with...
Let's talk about Battlefield. Last week we gave you our impressions on the Diablo 3 beta, so it's only fair that this week we give you our impressions on the Battlefield 3 one. Now, to understand, it is a beta, so it's got the usual amount of clipping and texture bugs, but it's important to note this isn't the final code. In fact, it's not even the latest iteration of the code.
The first thing you'll notice is how prone will really change the way you play. There's a lot more point holding, which is also due to a new suppression mechanic. Spamming a spot will blur it up for the spammee, which forces them to either move or be blinded, and along with other vision interference perks from red dots and flashlights, I can see so much wonderful strategy coming out of this Barjo.
Yeah, there are two maps in the beta, a Rush and a Conquest one. The Rush map is thrilling with some great points to take and hold and some fun flanking positions, but it is very light on tactical destruction, so it feels more like Call of Duty than Battlefield. Not necessarily a bad thing, I'm just hoping that the rest of the Rush maps will have a bit more of that destruction that we love so much from Bad Company 2. The Conquest map, however, now that was true Battlefield. Jets and helicopters and vehicles everywhere. Ah! I think I spent 90% of my time waiting for those jets to spawn and competing for a spot, and you can spawn in them too, which didn't really help. I'm in a jet! There are a few damage issues in the beta. It kind of all feels like hardcore mode at the moment, but the developer has stated they're aware of this bug and it will be fixed for final, I hope.
The browser interface is a little bit weird and different at first though, isn't it?
Yeah, at first I hated it, but then I thought back to all the browser interfaces in every other Battlefield game, and this is a million times more responsive than any of those, so it grew on me. I think my highlights overall were seeing that ripple effect when you shoot a tank shell into a bunch of trees. And skewering an ejecting pilot with my plane. Mid-air roadkill.
Alright, well we should get on with the show because coming up we have a review of an FPS from the people who practically defined the genre, id Software, and it's called Rage. But first, can you guess the game for this week?
The battle did end in a victory for us. However, the price we paid for it was far too dear.
I shall go and read the news.
It's beautiful diction. Well said. Well said, sir.
Good game!
English television station ITV recently aired a documentary that featured supposed footage of an IRA attack on a British helicopter from 1988.
With Gaddafi's heavy machine guns, it was possible to shoot down a helicopter, as the terrorists' own footage of 1988 shows.
Embarrassingly for the station, it turns out the footage was actually gameplay from the PC war sim Arma 2. ITV said of the mistake, the events featured were genuine, but during editing, other footage was mistakenly included. It was an unfortunate case of human error for which we apologise. A new discussion paper on the classification of media in Australia has recommended that only video games which are potentially MA15+ or R18+ would need to be submitted to the classification board. Games that are likely to be classified G, PG or M would instead be industry regulated and could be classified by authorised industry classifiers. The paper is currently available on the Australian Law Reform Commission website, and public submissions on the proposals are welcome. And sadly, last week brought us the news of the death of Apple founder Steve Jobs, who finally succumbed to pancreatic cancer. Jobs will forever be remembered for his profound impact on the computing industry.
A nightmare that I'll never forget.
The Ace Combat series has been around for over 15 years, and they just keep pumping them out, Hex. This is the 7th in the series, and it's called Ace Combat Assault Horizon, but it aims to do something a little bit different in an attempt to reinvigorate the genre.
Set mainly in Africa, you make up part of a NATO task force that's aiming to keep the peace by sorting out an anti-government insurgency. Turns out these baddies have a nasty destructive weapon called Trinity, and it's blowing stuff up.
Magic, they shot a cruise missile that must have contained a Trinity warhead.
Which makes it very interesting not only to you, but to some shady Russians too. Barjo, the intro to this game is incredible. In fact, it's one of the most thrilling intros to a fight game I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's so exciting, the way the music pumps up and then it's all just like, what am I doing? Very cool. The story is told here with cutscenes as well as in-game chatter.
All aircraft are on the ground. Thank you, friends.
The chatter does get a bit annoying though. In fact, more than one occasion I just crash my plane into the ground to avoid listening to them ramble on.
Roger that, little Bo Peep. All the way home. Wee.
Very funny, Captain. And it's a little sticky. Don't say it.
There's a good variety of planes and missiles to choose from, but it's generally best to go with what the game recommends, otherwise you might find completing certain areas a little bit difficult. The absolute first thing you need to do though when you load up the game is go into the settings and change the default, which automatically levels out your plane. I just can't imagine anyone wanting to play like that, Barjo.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive. I can see why they're doing. They want to make this game more accessible, but that just removes too much freedom. And besides, your plane can bounce off the ground once before it explodes anyway, so you're kind of okay. One thing they have added which makes the game more accessible and really works is the close range assault. When you're close enough to an enemy, you can go into a lock-on battle. This means you only have limited control over your plane, but allows you to concentrate on aiming down the sights. Almost like in a shooter or a third-person over-the-shoulder view, if you can handle that view. Once you take an enemy down, you're often shown a little cutaway explosion too, which makes it all quite rewarding.
Of course, your enemies can lock onto you as well, which means you'll need to maneuver your plane to overlap a green and red indicator on screen and then level out and counter-lock on.
Target acquired.
I have you fixed.
It takes a while to work out how this works, but once you do, it's really useful and adds to your repertoire of combat maneuvers.
I liked how sometimes in these lock-on moments the enemy plane would dive through a city or a canyon and you'd have to kind of follow it. It's all very exciting and I thought that was quite clever. It's just a shame it didn't look better. It's a bit of a mixed bag visually and overall I found it a bit underwhelming.
Yeah, I think you spend most of your time looking at the sky anyway, that you really only notice the graphical weakness in those on-rail sections or the helicopter missions. And those add a great variety too.
RPG on the roof. Correct. Onions flies are there.
Although, Barjo, I didn't realise it was standard practice to make your helicopter do a barrel roll to avoid missiles.
Incoming stem. Evade.
Yeah, there's a few parts which are a bit arcadey. You can't even crash the helicopters, so it's rather amusing just bumbling around town. I did like helping out my little guys though. Here you go guys, all dead.
Cap, we're down on ammo.
I applaud this developer for putting in so much variety in all of these missions and mission situations, but they all go on way too long. I reckon about 3 times as long as they should. It's just more enemies, more waves of enemies, move to another point, more enemies. Get on with it.
Yeah, I found the difficulty really unbalanced as well, Barjo, and you can't change it mid-campaign, which is so frustrating when you hit a bottleneck.
I find it's often the way in aerial shooters. There's always one bombing run or escort mission that is just so ridiculously hard, you'll fail it maybe 8 or 9 times, and then you'll pick it up a few days later and get it first go. Final thoughts?
Well, while I don't think this is the best air combat game out there, I think it does some interesting things for the genre and it may reinvigorate it for some people. Kind of the way that side-on mechanic in Hawks really made that game interesting to play, so I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I just wanted it to look better. You know, when you're flying around, you wanna see some pretty ground. You wanna fly by the ground and go, oh, look at the trees and the houses. But it's got excellent variety, and also those camera tracking moments are so exciting, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Well, whew, man, it's gonna show my age. I can't, if I give you the honest answer to that question, I mean, come on. Okay, Zork. My dad was a computer programmer, and so when I was 6, 7 years old, he would bring me to his computer site, and I would play Infocom text adventures on the old Unix systems at 3 a.m. in the morning. So I was kind of initiated into this crazy gamer world at a very young age. So I fell in love with text adventures. I thought that they were amazing, but I started very young. So I was doomed from the beginning.
Good game.
Back in the day, Pro Evolution Soccer, or Pro Evo as we like to call it, was considered the football game of choice. But ever since FIFA lifted its game, Pro Evo has struggled to deliver a meaningful alternative.
It could be costly.
But has the team at Konami turned things around this year?
Well, they've certainly taken a good shot at it, Badge.
Messi! It's led to a goal!
You can play an official Champions League, the Copa Libertadores, set up custom leagues, play an online Master League, And the new career mode, Football Life, lets you become a legendary player or manage your own club, as well as unlock a mode called Club Boss, where you take the role of chairman.
I'm not sure managing finances is my idea of fun, Hex. As for the licenses, things are still a little patchy. Almost all of Europe's big clubs are licensed, but when it comes to the Premier League, you've still only got Man U and Tottenham with proper kits and logos.
Pro Evo still has that very Pro Evo feel, and fans will know what I mean. It has an element of unpredictability that's quite quirky, and while it's not that realistic, it makes for some really fun moments.
The way the ball pings around is quite dynamic, and I think unexpected goals are a specialty of Pro Evo.
Oh no, he's put through his own goal.
But to me, the controls felt stiff and unresponsive at times. Sometimes it feels like your input just isn't being registered, and I think that's got something to do with how the game likes to assist your passing, movement, and tackling.
Yeah, there's a bit of automation still going on, but you can adjust that in the settings. Sometimes it can save your skin, like the way defenders will automatically boot the ball away, but other times you'll be annoyed at the way it all feels a bit Thunderbirds.
One way of wrestling back some of the finer control is by using the new teammate control. While controlling one play with the left stick, you point the right stick at a teammate you want to make a run, and then click the stick in. This lets you set up some very effective plays and override the AI when they're just not doing what you want them to. I thought this was implemented quite well.
The AI still does a pretty good job on its own though too, and you can unlock a superstar difficulty setting, which is like turning the game up to 11.
In the Football Life mode, I appreciated that they put a bit more effort into making it seem like a proper career with those funny little cutscenes. And I like how the game throws mini challenges at you before a match. These are a nice surprise and gives you something else to play for.
Pro Evo is capable of delivering some really fun football, but I don't know, I get the feeling that Konami are just deliberately ignoring what FIFA is doing, and as a result, Pro Evo just isn't making those big leaps that it should. What do you think, Badge?
I think in isolation, it's a pretty fun game, but when you go back to FIFA 12, which is what we've been comparing it with all week, you find it really hard to come back to Pro Evo. So I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10.
That may sound harsh, but it's true. It's still a fine game though, and I think fans that have been loyal to Pro Evo over FIFA will just love all these improvements. So I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens. Now, FIFA 12.
I got you, you got me, got a chance, I believe. Love will come and break the spell tonight.
FIFA 12 makes a radical change to both the gameplay and controls with a whole new tactical defense system. It's a risky move that I think will initially freak people out.
Yep, no longer do you hold down a button to press for the ball. In fact, that button does quite the opposite. Makes your defender back off to contain the attacking player. I think it's safe to say this takes a lot of time to get used to because it's a whole different style of defending. Maybe it makes the football look more realistic because defenders aren't sprinting out of position to attack the ball, but this makes the game a lot harder.
Yeah, it is a massive change, and the old system produced a much faster, more rough and tumble game. But now it's all about careful positioning and timing your lunges. It slows the play down, and maybe some of the pizzazz has been sacrificed.
I was relieved to see that EA give you the option to go back to the old style of defending, which is now called legacy defending. I tried to line tactical defending, Hex, I really did, but I just had to go back.
There's also a new player impact system, which exaggerates the physics of tackles. For the most part, it livens things up, but occasionally you see something that looks a bit stupid.
It produces a few WTF moments, and it makes me wonder if they just tried to change a bit too much about the game this year.
They've also added an XP system that awards you points for doing just about anything, and what this goes towards is a global tally for your favourite club, as well as raise your own personal FIFA status. I thought this was a nice touch, even if it doesn't really mean that much.
One thing we should mention is that the career mode has had some welcome changes. The whole transfer system is way more active, plus you can stall on contract decisions. Your players now also have morale, which can boost or lower their stats, so there's an extra layer to the experience there. I like they put actual photos of the players in game too, but they do look a bit rough, like they've just trawled an image search engine. Final thoughts?
Well, I think FIFA 12 has made enough improvements over last year's game to come highly recommended. Everything from faster loading times to more detailed commentary. They took a bit of a risk with tactical defending, but I think in the long run it's going to pay off, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I'm still on the fence with tactical defending. I think it's great against the AI, but it's just rubbish against human opponents. Still, you can't deny that FIFA 12 is bursting with stuff for the football fan. I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Oh, well done, the referee. He's not known for
And the shot's on. They've scored. Good game.
As gamers, we know that gaming has forever changed the way humans choose to entertain themselves. But how do other mediums like film and TV perceive us?
Is that a 12 core?
16.
You hold the high score in virtually every massively multiplayer online role-playing game.
Cut! Okay, where do we even start? 16 cores, holding the high score in every MMORPG? They've got to be trolling us, right? The inclusion of games in TV and film often comes off like an awkward teacher trying to tell us what's cool. It feels as if they're trying a little bit too hard to squeeze gaming into storylines, and as a result, they create lazy stereotypes of gamers and the sort of games that we play.
You think you can get to level 10?
Detective, I'm 30 years old, I live with my mother, and I have a Captain Kirk costume in my closet.
Look, we know that characterizing us is tricky. We're a mixed bunch, yet usually we're all lumped under the one banner, gamers. But sometimes, to get us just so wrong seems downright insulting.
Hey, guy, watch this.
Hang on, Caleb. Mommy's coming.
Hurry. Get up. All right, get up.
Hey, this is level 20, okay? This is the Kingdom of Galagar.
Okay, now this may have been based on a true story, but to rely on cringeworthy and outdated stereotypes like these, it's embarrassing and it's doing a disservice to the real gamers out there. That's not to say all video games in the media are portrayed as negatively as these examples, but there are some little mistakes that, while they may go unnoticed to non-gamers, we can't help but watch and shake our heads in disbelief.
What are you doing in my office, Dex?
Winning.
What are you doing? You're playing Halo 3 on a PC with only a keyboard. Come on. Gamers make up a huge slice of the TV viewing audience, so it's just so frustrating to see so many shows not even getting the basics right. But when they do get it right, we're just as happy to laugh at ourselves.
I got my enchanted weapons, my vicious gladiator armor, my wand of untainted power, and all my gold.
At least we can take solace in the fact that these writers actually did their World of Warcraft research.
Level 85 Blood Elf, hero of the Eastern Kingdoms, has been picked clean.
As gamers age and gamers who happen to be writers and producers get good jobs on popular shows, there's evidence that things are changing.
Left 4 Dead, yo.
No, man. Resident Evil 4 takes it by a long shot.
Please, brother, you're front.
Call of Duty, World at War, zombie mode. Now that's the bomb, man.
Okay, so here's a valid discussion about actual games, and it's a discussion that real gamers would have.
It is time for our final battle. Everyone log in. I'm in.
So we've seen this stereotype before, but at least in this parody, they've used a real game, and this gives it credibility.
Stan, what enchantment does your Cloak of the Tiger have? Plus 15 agility? Give the cloak to Kenny, he needs the agility boost for bow attacks.
Let's hope that it's a trend that continues, or they might just find that we'll switch off and go and find a good game to play instead.
id Software are the masters of the first-person shooter. From Wolfenstein to Doom to the various incarnations of Quake, they made the FPS genre what it is today.
It's been about 6 years since Quake 4, and since then, id Software founder John Carmack has been busy working on an entirely new engine dubbed id Tech 5. All that hard work is now ready to see the light of day in the form of Rage.
All arcs secure. This is Atlas Control, signing off. May we live to see another day.
Earth has been hit by the Apophis meteorite, and those left on the planet's derelict surface do what they can to survive. You, however, are one of the lucky few who are sealed down below in an ark. When the time comes for you to rise and rebuild humanity, sadly you find that all your ark buddies are dead, so you venture out not really knowing what to do. But you do quickly find out that a group known as the Authority are out to get you.
Pretty standard opening for a post-apocalyptic game, I think, Hex. I like the idea of this Apophis meteorite, though. That's something that's real and is coming towards us, but scientists aren't so worried about it anymore. It looks like it's going to miss the Earth completely. I am happy that it's not going to hit the Earth, but I'm also sad that there's not going to be some cool space mission out to blow it up.
Yeah, all right, get on with the game.
Anyway, in Rage, the meteorite changes everything. Don't want to close my eyes. In recent post-apocalyptic games like Fallout 3 or even Borderlands, you're used to being the loner, so it's a bit unusual because in Rage, everyone is so helpful.
It ain't safe here. Get in.
Yeah, they do love a good old chinwag though, don't they? They take ages to get to the point.
I've got one word for you to remember. Feltrite. You know what Feltrite is? Probably not. Well, let me tell you.
I like some of the character design though. It truly embraces the Western.
Welcome to Wellspring.
It hasn't really focused as heavily on characters and story before, but sadly, it's not really what's going to pull you through the game. You'll mostly stay with Rage for its excellent FPS combat action.
Well, let's talk about the scale of the world and the addition of vehicles first. Rage is designed around 3 hub worlds for quests and minigames. This isn't an open world game, but more like a very good-looking corridor shooter, with some RPG elements and all connected by a bit of driving.
Hex, I didn't really enjoy these driving bits, so I opted out of it where I could. The world itself is beautiful and the driving mechanics are fine, but I just found having to fight those bandits every single time I went out, they were just more annoying than exciting. There is a reward for killing them, but ammo is expensive and you're already counting every single dollar as it is.
I thought the racing missions had a bit of a motor storm feel to them, but even with shields and weapons, it got a little bit repetitive after a while. There just isn't that much reward for exploring.
When you're in hub zones, you're prevented from firing any weapons. It's here you'll be talking to the local folks and unfurling the main story quest line, as well as buying and selling gear, ammo and schematics. Or try your hand at winning some cash off the locals. I didn't win anything. You can also pick up side quests here too, but Hex, I found these just reuse the previous location, so I wasn't that enthralled to go on them.
Yeah, and outside areas do have a GPS system, but it can be a bit tricky to find where you're going when you're on foot in those hub zones.
Yeah, I got so lost in that subway zone, trying to find the resistance base. I'd only been there once before, and I just had no idea where it was, and I was walking along every single wall, just pushing A, hoping it was some secret door that I hadn't found, and eventually I stumbled into it by accident.
Yeah, there's no map or markers, and even though you can work it out based on what's written in your objectives, it can still take a while to find the right person.
Yeah, but when you're not wandering around town, you'll be traversing industrial sites, gang hideouts, and the sewers, and pretty much killing everything you can see.
These self-contained levels away id Software really know how to hit their stride, I think. There are some nice little moments to pull you through each section, lots of goons busting open doors to guide you along, and lots of little level design choices that'll make you remember where you're going. You can really see the experience behind this level design.
I think I like the early levels the most, Hex, especially all those destroyed cities and that Smash TV-inspired kill room.
Yeah, and the enemies you face offer a really good challenge too. It felt like a good mix of old school and newer FPS techniques. You can zoom down the barrel of most guns, and the pistol comes with an awesome spyglass upgrade. But I actually found it easier to go old school badge. I only really zoomed in when sniping or taking pot shots around a shield.
Yeah, me too. I like that a lot. I tell you what though, I don't think I connected a single one of those melees. It just felt a bit off. The enemies with guns are tough, and you'll churn through the ammo to get through them, but I would have liked a bit more variety in the enemies, I think, Hex.
Yeah, I would have liked more variety in the weapons, I think. There are different ammo types for each weapon, and they do make a difference depending on the enemy. You can fit the crossbow with an electrified dart or a mind control one, which makes enemies stumble and explode. There's also an AK, which can be fitted with armor-piercing rounds, and the shotgun, which was my favorite. It can become a grenade launcher and has EMP shells, which is very useful against spider bots.
You can buy some ammo types, but the more interesting ones you'll need to make yourself from stuff you've collected around the world, and you can buy parts as well. I think the non-standard ammo was definitely the most fun, which makes sense, but I was always broke, Hex. I never had enough money to have a decent supply of these.
Yeah, I think if you did all the side missions and all the races, you could be pretty cashed up, although ammo is scarce and you do spend a lot of it on these missions, so in the end, it works out not even really worth it a lot of the time.
I think one of the strongest parts of this game, though, are the way enemies take your bullets. Armor will be peeled off them, they'll grab their eyes, they'll grab their feet and hobble comically if you hit them there. And those explosive deaths were nice and giblet heavy.
Yeah, and the way they come at you, dodging your moves and ducking out of the way.
Yeah, more games should do this. It just makes that combat so much more interesting when they actually react to, where you're shooting them.
Yeah, I did find though that once you worked out the best weapon for each enemy, the game didn't do a whole lot to make you change your tactics. It's just like, towards the end, the enemies just had more armor.
Rage has a few multiplayer options. On the vehicle side of things, there's some races, but also combat arenas. But the co-op is much more fun, where you just plow through a series of levels, and it's a shame the whole game didn't have a cooperative campaign. In fact, I found myself comparing this game to Borderlands quite a lot, and this looks much better than Borderlands, but I didn't really find it as engaging.
It makes me wonder if maybe that long development cycle hurt Rage in the long run, because, there are parts of it that just feel a little bit behind the times. It's by no means a bad game, and there are parts of it that are really good, and, maybe our expectations are getting the better of us, but I guess just overall it didn't really feel that memorable.
For me, it was all that zone pinballing, just going between quest givers here and there. It felt like it wasted my time for no reason, and that really slowed the pace for me.
Good to see you again, friend.
I really struggled with this score, Hex, because it just looks so good, and I really enjoyed that combat, but I couldn't connect with anything else in this game, so I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. It's definitely above average, but really it's got me excited about Doom 4, because I think they'll do better with that.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit light in the RPG elements for me, but I do think it's worth a little bit more than that, Barjo. I mean, there's just an amazing degree of polish in this game, and if you like your old school shooters, then this can get quite thrilling, especially in the harder difficulty. So I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens. So did you guess the game for this week? It was Skycrawler's Innocent Aces on the Wii, an anime-inspired flight combat game from Namco's Project Aces division, who are also responsible for the Ace Combat series. It was rubbish.
Well, it's time to start those engines, because next week we'll bring you a review of Forza 4.
Stay in here.
And we get our grapple on and take to the skies of Batman Arkham City. Thanks to all the live tweeters tonight, and don't forget to jump on the forums or the Facebook page to leave your thoughts on the show. We'll be back next week. Barjo out.
Hex out.